Approximately 1,992 years ago, an innocent person was put to death in the Roman Empire. He was put before Pilate, who found no fault in him. He questioned Jesus, found no fault with him. He questioned the crowd, asked the crowd what they would like to have done with the King of the Jews. They kept on saying, "Crucify him." Pilate washed his hands off Jesus' blood because he felt he was an innocent person, in which he was. He was given the option. The crowd were given the option to release release one person, and the crowd chose a person called Barabbas, who was a murderer, to be released instead of Jesus. Jesus was flogged, which means beaten. He had a crown of thorns placed on his head, which scratched his skull. The depiction and the narrative that's in the Passion of Christ only touches the surface. It was a lot worse. Roman executions, crucifixion, were a lot worse than the film describes, which is horrible. Herod, Jesus was a Galilean. He also questioned Jesus. Today is Good Friday. This is essentially a whole heap of accusations were thrown at Jesus. He was questioned. He did remain silent at first. A few things to note, important things today. 3 things I would say. Firstly, it marks the beginning. It's the forgiveness of sins through his blood. Secondly, Jesus' prayer. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. So even when he's been persecuted by these people, he still prays and asks for their forgiveness on their behalf. He intercedes on a human's behalf, even the ones that are being horrid to him. And one thing that's come to mind, which I've overlooked, Luke chapter 23, verse 12. And though Herod and Pilate had been enemies before, they were reconciled that same day. So even in his most distressed, painful time, Jesus reconciled 2 people. So he's always reconciling. Even Herod. See, that's not something that gets spoken about very often. Pilate and Herod were reconciled on that day because of Christ. So he was impaled. I think it is on the 3rd hour, which would have been, today begins at 6 a.m. Back then. And so he would have been impaled at 9 a.m. At 12 o'clock, midday, which would have been the 6th hour, to the 9th hour, there was a darkness over the land. And at 3 p.m, which would have been the 9th hour, Jesus quoted one of the scriptures, which is, I think, Psalms 22 or 23. Father, Father, why have you forsaken me? And then at the end he says, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. With these words he breathed his last. Yeah. This was a great man. And when the people had gathered for the spectacle, they saw what had happened, and they went home beating their breasts. Yeah. It's a day of sadness. but in 3 days is a time of happiness.